This video is the continuation of the former video. We humans like to hear we are a product of evolution and the fittest of all. It seems to give us some kind of purpose and/or security. This is possibly more so in the so-called developed world. After all, it was in the so-called developed world that the evolution theory arose. But this sense of security could one day turn out to be a false security. That could very well be our most important challenge and threat to extinction. The Ice Age. Humans call the time that the total landmass at their disposal was larger, because of the 120 meters lower ocean levels, when their most fertile land was not flooded yet by the risen oceans, and when the climate was not yet in collapse, the Ice Age, and humans call the period of ongoing collapse and flooding the Holocene. When in actual times the oceans rise with a few millimeters a year, humans call it a challenge and a threat, and also consider it a cause of calamities and floods, because devastating floods happen from the rising ocean to the land, and also inside the land, because waters from exceptional rains cannot drain quick enough, also because the ocean level is higher. The latter is in stark contrast with not recognizing a rising with a whopping 120 meters a calamity that had a large and devastating impact on us humans in the so-called for our development and agriculture favorable Holocene. There is no such thing as a normal ice age and a normal Holocene. There is only before the destruction of forests and climate and after the destruction of forests and climate, of sustainability and biodiversity. And these destructions were caused by or at least clearly associated with unsustainable agriculture, which after all is a destructive, degenerating and unsustainable practice. That sure enough leads to the partial and still ongoing destruction of the planet, its climate and much of all life it once hosted, fed, and was able to make it prosper. It is not because a process takes a lot of human generations, that it is not that process anymore, and will not have the logical unwished for consequences. Further, there is us modern humans, totally absent before the peak of destruction, and there is us modern humans, the only ones actually living, and all other non-agriculture humans extinct, after the destruction that took place around the peak and the well-known mark called the Younger Dryas, exactly when we modern humans arrived on the Eurasian scene, with the unsustainable agriculture and metallurgy already in full swing, long before while they were still in the Americas. This also explains why the Younger Dryas boundary extends the way it does, and from the Americas to Western Eurasia. Among others, ancient as well as modern DNA analysis systematically points out that our DNA, especially the DNA of Northern Europe, is most similar to Native Americans, more specifically or the furthest back in time the Amazon Americans, which obviously lived and to some extent still live in South America. While this confirms what all relevant ancestral markers tell us the whole time, nobody dares to claim that our ancestors are indeed Amerindians and more specifically Amazon Amerindians. Refusing to recognize the obvious, and especially refusing to recognize what the relevant scientific markers and science point out over and over, prejudices us humans quite a lot to discover and recognize our best solutions to challenges and the best way for us to thrive, and of all existence on this planet. It blinds us to see who we are, and how we solved our solutions, lived sustainable lives and thrived, and populated the world, departing more than once from the Amazon forest, that should be considered a carbon agroforest and a cradle, and much later from or also from North America, as in the case of the Europeans and West Asians that arrived after the Younger Dryas. There are some very interesting facts about the simultaneous biodiversity destruction and or reduction, but that is not the subject of this video. Whoever wants can assist one of our videos about the division of our world, in what we call the marsupial world to the east of the Wallace Line with less traditional and unsustainable agriculture, with more biodiversity, and which includes the Amazon forest. A world without primates and lions, but with jaguars, and the non-marsupial world to the west of the Wallace Line with more traditional agriculture, that includes primates and lions, but no jaguars, and that is roughly related to, or to be found on both sides of the famous Wallace Line. Scientists often claim the origin and geology of the different tectonic plates to be the cause of the differences. We claim that while geology had its influence, the actual status in most cases is most related to the dominant human culture and the form of agriculture that had the most impact. While the Wallace Line and a certain division is recognized, a division in a marsupial world and a non-marsupial world is not recognized. Eurasia and certainly Europe are clearly located in the non-marsupial world, or should we say in the no longer marsupial world. This video is part of a series and to be continued.